Oh, good morning, and very warm welcome to another Desert Island Discs and our Slice of Heaven at 11. And this morning with me is Chris Farrow. Morning, Chris. Um,
Morning.
your face is probably familiar to many because you sort of have worshipped and do worship at St John's and St Luke's with family. But why don't you just sort of introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself before we get into the nitty gritty of the music?
Yeah, sure. So as you say, I'm Chris. I've been worshipping at St John's and St Luke's for some years now. I've been on the PCC previously. I've come off that more recently, and India's taken a turn. My wife India and I come together with Jude, who serves quite often now at St John's, and Connie, who runs around terrorising people as well. And I'm a teacher at secondary school over in Poole, and grew up not very far away. My connection to St John's goes back a bit longer because when I was younger, my dad was vicar at St Thomas's, Ensbury Park, and we did some choral pieces together quite regularly with St John's. So know some folk through that, such as Barbara as well. So been worshipping with St John's for probably 7 years or so, I think now, but known it for longer.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And just to explain for those who don't know how this works, it's the format of Radio 4's Desert Island Discs that's been running for many, many years. You've chosen 8 tracks of note that we'll sort of talk about in a minute. We'll do 7 first, and because of copyright and all sorts of shenanigans, we can't play the tracks. So we'll just talk about them. But I'll put a list up a link up at the end for the Spotify playlist for those who'd like to listen to it. And then there are 2 items: a luxury item, and then a book. You would automatically get the Bible and the complete works of Shakespeare. So this is then something to go in addition to that. So we will kick off with overall, you have an fairly eclectic list. The first one is the one where I have to say this wouldn't ever be on any of my top lists for a band, but it's the Smiths and This Charming Man, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose each of the pieces that I've selected kind of remind me of a person or a period of time in my life. And this kind of piece of music I selected really because it reminds me of probably one of the people that's had the greatest influence over my taste in music, and that'd be my brother Nick, who's 2 years older than me, and I picked up quite a lot from him in terms of music. You said that my list is eclectic. I think his taste in music is even more so. I can remember when we were growing up, he was a big fan of the Pet Shop Boys, and so drove me around the Bend when he had West End Girls on permanent loop. But then he'd go from something like that to the Sabres of Paradise or the Wu-Tang Clan. So really very eclectic mix. So maybe that's where I get some of it from, at least. But I certainly got into the Smiths through him. I think the Smiths are one of those bands that a lot of teenagers get into. I still find kids at school today who will be listening to the Smiths, which never ceases to surprise me.
It's a sort of teenage sound, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Those kind of, it's like that mix. I think it's that mix of happy sounding tunes with quite morbid lyrics.
Yeah,
which seems to appeal to the teenage brain. And I know Morrissey's been in the press recently for saying pretty weird and wild stuff. And his solo stuff's pretty hit and mix. Don't necessarily like all of that much, but I do think that the Smiths, they've got quite a classic sound and gone on to influence quite a lot of other bands that I like. So they had to be there quite near the top.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. So the first one on the list is "This Charming Man" by the Smiths. Next up, now I think you'll sort of impress Dave Griffiths, because I believe he's had correspondence with one of the members of this group, who I don't think lives very far away. But your second up is Blur's Country House, which I do think is a brilliant tune.
Yeah, a great song. My sixth form and uni days just happened to be around the time of the whole Britpop thing. And to be honest, I probably could have done a whole 8 tracks just on that period of time. We probably could have done 8 tracks for every year from about 93 to 99, to be honest. I was a massive fan of other bands at the time, people like Suede. I think my first live music experience was going to Portsmouth Pyramid Centre to see Suede playing the day they released their 3rd single, Animal Nitrate. I was 15 at the time. The British music scene was just awash with new bands, and it was such a really great time to be into music. Nick and I would head into Bournemouth. There was this little indie record store up in the Triangle called Vibe. When we go there to buy records, he'd have been reading the latest issue of Melody Maker, be telling me all the bands we had to look out for. So we'd head off and get music there. And picking a track for that kind of period of time was really tough, because there's just so many. I think that I could have picked. I went for this track in the end, I think, because of the whole Blur versus Oasis thing, and it was this track that Blur released when they went head to head with Oasis, releasing a single on the same day in '95. And I was probably more of an Oasis fan at the time, if I'm honest, but I suppose I leant more towards picking Blur now, because recently Jude, my son, who's just turned 12, has started to get into 90s indie music. Which I don't particularly know how we got into that, really, but I was absolutely delighted that he did, and he's fast becoming a big Blur fan. So I've kind of picked this partly for Jude as well. I'm not sure of the two which I prefer. Jude keeps asking me who I think's better, Blur or Oasis, and I don't honestly know which of the two I prefer. I think Blur probably stood the test of time better. But I picked this because I think it's just a great symbol of that time and everything that was happening in British music at that point.
Brilliant. And I think an exceptional video to go with it. Yes. A really good, fun video to go with it. So thank you for number 2. Number 3, and I confess not to knowing much about this artist at all. You've chosen Jack Johnson and Inaudible Memories.
Melodies.
Yeah. Melodies. Sorry, not memories. Melodies.
Yeah. Well, again, it's quite a different change of music, I suppose, from Blur. And I started to get into Jack Johnson when I was quite early on in my teaching career. I think the recommendation may even have come from a student. I've gotten into surfing when I was at university, and Jack Johnson was the soundtrack to a couple of road trips down to Hosker and Biarritz. And this album in particular, not the album from this one actually, the first album I got into from Jack Johnson is On and On, and there's loads of great tracks on that. But when I eventually stumbled across this from, I think it was his first album, this track, Inaudible Melodies, I fell in love with it straight away. I was teaching philosophy, among other things at the time, and I love the reference within the song to Plato's cave. And the line, I think, is really about faith and believing in the things that we can't see or hear. And so it reminds me of that point within my life.
Fabulous. Thank you for that one. I think we're possibly going a bit further back in time now. And this won't be the first time that we've had some Neil Diamond, because Alan Turl chose it a couple of weeks ago. So you've got Neil Diamond, is a different track this time, but Pretty Amazing Grace.
Yeah, and older artists, but released after the Jack
Mm.
Johnson, I'm fairly sure. So I forget what year this was released, probably around something like 2006, 2008, something like that. But yeah, Pretty Amazing Grace. Like you, I've been into hi-fi for many years. In fact, it was a friend of mine from primary school that really got me into hi-fi. I wasn't in primary school at the time, I hasten to add.
Mm.
I think I was in sixth form when I picked up my first silver Technic system, which has then just evolved over time. And you can probably trace the lineage from that system through to the hi-fi that I have now, with crossing over different bits of kit. But I picked up my love for this track from the same friend, and it was a song that he introduced me to, and it's become one of my test tracks. So if I'm ever changing anything within the hi-fi, comparing different bits of kit or different headphones or anything like that, it's the track that I'll use because I know the track so well. I can listen out for the difference in sound. So it reminds me of that friend, but it also reminds me of India because it was an album I was listening to a lot when we got together.
Lovely. Yeah, I do like a bit of Neil Diamond, so that's great. Following on from Mr. Diamond, we have the Divine Comedy and Assume the Perpendicular.
Yeah. So Judas had his track with Blur, and this track would be the track for Connie. I've been a fan of the Divine Comedy since the 90s, but this track came off an album they released in 2010 called Bango's Knighthood. It's a great album, one of my all-time favourites, loads of great tracks. I really like Neil Hammond. He's got a brilliant knack for writing songs with a little twist of humour, and I just think he's a fantastic songwriter. In fact, this album came out shortly after the financial crash, and there's a particularly funny track on there called Complete Banker, which is also worth a listen. And I remember we were listening to this a lot in 2015, and India got me a mini break to Somerset based entirely on this song. Unbeknownst to her, I'd also organised pretty much the same thing for her birthday 6 weeks later. And both trips were when she was pregnant with Connie, and we picked one of Connie's middle names, Lavinia, based entirely on a lyric within this song.
Fabulous. Oh, that's a brilliant story. That's really good. Now, the next one is interesting. I can't remember. It was on a Zoom call, and it may well have been Film Club of last week or the week before, when it was pointed out to someone that the lyrics that they had quoted were Leonard Cohen's lyrics. And the tone changed immediately because this individual didn't like or doesn't like Leonard Cohen at all. I don't know. I think sometimes Leonard Cohen can be a bit sort of a bit Marmite.
Yeah.
I like Leonard Cohen. So this track is Leonard Cohen and You Want It Darker.
Yeah, I've got a friend at work, and from time to time we give each other music recommendations. We went on a residential trip a few years ago, and I can remember one evening we were just sort of like chatting and started sharing recommendations for music, and every now and then we'll kind of catch each other in the corridor in the staff room and sort of say, oh, you must try this, you must listen to this, you look like this. And it was him that recommended this song to me. He said he thought I would like it, and I'd never really listened to that much Leonard Cohen before through choice, but it reminded me of people like Neil Diamond, sorry, not Neil Diamond, people like Nick Cave, Johnny Cash, people like that, and so I quickly got into it, and the album was written shortly before Cohen died, and there's loads of religious symbolism throughout the whole song and the whole album. This track in particular seemed particularly good for Easter, and we used it at school for a liturgy we did. We were in Maundy Thursday a couple of years ago, and there's a line in it, a Hebrew word, hineni, which is Hebrew for "here I am," and it's the response that Abraham gives to God when he calls him to sacrifice Isaac. And so it's just a brilliantly atmospheric song, and I think another great song that I used to test track.
Fabulous. I'm now getting some hints and tips as to what I should be listening to as test tracks when I change things around on my hi-fi. Our penultimate track before we have a pause for you to talk about the other two things. Now, I came across this group not that long ago, but I think they're brilliant, and it's a big ensemble, and I think they were due to be in Bournemouth touring at some stage imminently, but it's Postmodern Jukebox and Halo.
Yeah, so completely different to the last track, completely different to Leonard Cohen. Postmodern Jukebox, they are an absolutely amazing band, and I would recommend, if you haven't heard their stuff before, to go out, and loads of it's on YouTube. They're really easy to find on YouTube. But what they do is they take modern songs and then they record them in a very different style with a more kind of a 30s type twist. The first track I heard of theirs was a few years ago. It was the White Stripes' Seven Nation Army, a great song which I liked, but I loved their kind of cover version of it. And I just started looking up more and more of their stuff and listening to more and more of their stuff. They do all sorts of different things. They do an amazing cover version of My Heart Will Go On from Titanic, which is great as well. And as you say, they're amazing because they're such a huge ensemble. You've got different people coming in for different tracks and giving slightly different twists to stuff.
And they do some sugary pop as well, sort of, or covers of sugary pop, don't they? So it's hilarious, actually.
Yeah, they do. A lot of it's very tongue in cheek, but it's brilliant, really, really good. And so this track is a cover of a Beyonce song. I can assure you, I'm not a fan of Beyonce at all. But I absolutely love this song. I find it an amazingly uplifting song. India and I were lucky enough to go and see them. We had a rare child-free evening. They were in the O2 in Boscombe last year, and we went to see them. And this song was the absolute highlight for me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we pause the music for a moment and we'll talk about your two non-musical items. How long the first will last you, who knows? Introduce and talk about your luxury item.
Yeah, well, this was difficult. I wasn't really too sure what to go with. It's one of those things where what could you have? In the end, I went for something which is a kind of a part of my daily life, something which I enjoy pretty much every day, and that's Marmite. Actually, you referenced it earlier. Some people might hate it, but I love Marmite, and it's something that I do have most days. And I thought, well, that might be a good luxury. Although you're absolutely right, it probably wouldn't last too long.
Take a bucket worth, see how long it would last. Yeah, I think that's a good choice. I'm a big fan of Marmite, so I'm sort of with you on the qualities of Marmite. And then in terms of your book or books, you sort of asked that it might be cheating, but this is not Radio 4, so we can flex the rules a bit. So introduce your books.
Well, there is a slight edge of cheating within this, or there is also a rationale behind it as well. So for my book, I thought I'd take the the collective works of Agatha Christie, and I didn't know if compilations were allowed. But then if you've got the Bible as a collective works, and if we've got the collective works of Shakespeare, then I think surely I must be allowed to get away with that one. Why Agatha Christie? I suppose I like Agatha Christie is just a kind of a complete escapism. I like the idea of trying to work out what's going to happen before the end. It's you know where you stand. It's all pretty safe. By the end of it, the world will be fine. And there's just something about that that age that I quite like. It's not the greatest writing in the world, but it's a bit of harmless fun.
Fabulous. And why not? Absolutely. You know, it's a good, keep you going for a little while. That as well. I suspect, I don't know how much Agatha Christie has written, but I suspect it's a lot.
Yes,
to say the least. So brilliant. So now on to your 8th and final piece of music. Not a piece of music I have to confess I know or knew at all until playing through your 8 tracks. So introduce your 8th and final piece of music.
Okay, well, the final piece of music I selected is the Healy Hutchinson Carol Symphony, and it's something that reminds me of my childhood. Some may remember it from the TV series Box of Delights, which I can remember as a child we used to watch and rewatch regularly. But this music we had on cassette, and we would be playing it over and over all the time, and it just transports me back to particularly, I think, the dining room in my childhood home, only about a couple of miles away from where we are now. Although it's Christmas music, we tended to start playing it from about October. Such was our love of it, and it particularly reminds me as well, I think, of Sundays, because Sundays was a day in the house of a day of routine. I would get up and walk up the road to get the newspaper while my brother would serve at the 8 o'clock, and then we'd come back for a big cooked breakfast. This would be playing. Then we'd go off to the 10 o'clock, we'd come back for lunch, and this would be playing. And that was pretty much the soundtrack to what feels like quite a bit of my happy childhood. And so the final track then would be that Healy Hutchinson Carol Symphony.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, we will play out with that. Bizarre though it is, in May, having some Christmas, it brought a smile to my face when I heard it earlier, because I thought actually playing out this with some Christmas music would be, in these very strange times, I think probably very apt. So Chris Farrow, for your Desert Island Disc, thank you very much.
Thank you.